Ever seen a pop-up event turn into a last-minute disaster? I have too. Endless revisions, tight deadlines, and last-minute panic. But it doesn't have to be this way. By the end of this video, you'll know how to plan a pop-up activation that runs seamlessly. No stress, no surprises, just flawless execution. If you've ever dealt with last-minute changes, supply delays, or approvals that just keep dragging on, you'll know how frustrating this can be. And if you don't lock things in early, you risk budget blowouts, missed deadlines, and pop-ups that just don't meet expectations. Over the last 15 years of producing custom builds for pop-ups, brand activations, and experiential events, I've perfected a system that eliminates all these headaches. At the end of the day, it comes down to three key things: clear timelines, speedy approvals, and a proactive team that can solve problems before they happen. So let's get into it. Clear timelines and speedy approvals. I know the number one reason why pop-ups can turn into a last-minute mess is because clear timelines and approval dates are not set from day one. And trust me, this is a disaster waiting to happen. I've seen so many activations fall apart because of one simple mistake: deadlines that keep getting pushed back. The result? Rush jobs, skyrocketing costs, and pop-ups that don't meet your expectations. But don't worry, there's a simple fix. We always like to create a rock-solid timeline with clear milestones so that nothing is left to chance. From the moment we start, we know exactly what's going to happen. Firstly, we need to get everybody's expectations aligned up front. I always like to help clients clearly define key deliverables, deadlines, and budget limitations right at the start. The next major step to this is to make sure we can get approvals early, so that nothing's left too late. This allows us to lock in as much as possible before fabrication even begins. And the last part of this is to plan for some contingencies. We want to anticipate any potential roadblocks and build in some buffer time so that we've got a little bit of wiggle room if we need it. You might be thinking, but what if the brand changes their mind last minute? That's exactly why we build in that little bit of buffer time. We always want to be ready for small tweaks, but major changes last minute, that's where costs and delays creep in, and that's what we want to avoid. The most common mistakes I see with these types of projects are leaving approvals to last minute, and this is where delays can stack up fast. The next one's not setting clear deadlines with all stakeholders. This one-week link can throw everything off schedule, and so we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And the last one is ignoring contingency planning, because trust me, something always comes up. A clear timeline and early approvals will take all the stress out of your execution. When everything's planned up front, there's no scrambling, it's just smooth sailing. Number 2 is minimizing revisions and approval delays. If approvals are dragging out, your whole activation is at risk. And the worst part, most of the time, these delays are 100% avoidable. We've all been there, waiting days for feedback, only to then receive a huge list of things that need to get changed. This means extra work, wasted time, and added costs. And if things drag out too long, it means the suppliers lose production time, and this is where costs can go up even more, and you end up in a situation where you've now got a rush job on your hands. The key is to minimize all this stuff from the beginning. The more aligned everybody is up front, is going to reduce the amount of back and forth that happens throughout the concept and costing process. We want to make sure that the agency, the brand, and the supplier are all on the same page before production begins. And here's how I like to go about it. Number 1 is pre-visualization. This is everything. We use detailed drawings and mock-ups so that everybody knows exactly what the plan is. And then we get the decision makers together nice and early. This makes sure we can get everything ticked off before fabrication begins. And then we make the approval deadlines non-negotiables so that we can keep everything on track. You might think, yeah, but what if the feedback comes in late? This is exactly why we set the approval dates up front so that everybody's got a heap of notice on the targets they need to hit. And if for whatever reason these deadlines do get missed, then we move to a contingency plan. The biggest mistakes I see are people making big changes too close to the end of the process. This is where budgets can spiral out of control and things can get a little crazy. The next one's not involving the decision makers nice and early. A lot of delays can happen when all these approvals need to go up the chain last minute and it takes too long to get an answer back on what needs to happen. And the last one is ignoring pre-visualization. If brands can't see exactly what they're getting, revisions are going to pile up really quickly. Fast, clear approvals mean a stress-free build. The sooner things get locked in, the smoother everything runs. Number 3, proactive team prevents issues. The best activations aren't just well designed, they're well prepared. And this means working with a team that can spot the problems before they happen. Most last minute stress isn't caused by unavoidable issues. It's because problems weren't anticipated early enough. Whether it's logistics issues, material delays, or a last minute tweak, the difference between a smooth event and a nightmare is a team that can prevent issues instead of reacting to them. I personally don't want to work with suppliers that just build and deliver. I want someone who can help me plan the process. This means proactive troubleshooting, clear communication, and contingency planning built into every project. Here's a method I like to use with my team to make sure we can nail all of them. First one's weekly progress check-ins. We want to keep everybody on the same page so there's no last minute surprises. The next one's problem solving before fabrication. If we spot a potential issue, we want to fix it before it reaches the workshop floor. It's way easier to fix something in a drawing than it is to fix something with your tools once it's already built. And the last one is having a prepared team on site. We always want to make sure that the people that fabricated our custom builds are the ones that are going to be installing them. The last thing you want is a team rocking up to site that's got no idea what they're doing and has never seen the job before. The biggest mistakes I see here are not having contingency plans. If something goes wrong, you don't want to be scrambling to come up with the solution on the spot. You want to put yourself in a position where you've already thought about this ahead so that if something does go wrong, hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, you've already got a plan that you can execute then and there to make sure you get the best result for everybody. The next one is skipping regular process updates. Communication gaps can lead to avoidable surprises, so if we can keep everybody on the same page, that's a really safe place to be. And the last one is people relying on inexperienced teams. I always look for people that have been there and done it and can come up with solutions really quickly. Someone that can help when things get a little tricky. Because when you're working with a proactive team, the last minute stress can just disappear. And my philosophy is the best way to solve a problem is to make sure it never happens in the first place. Number 4 is to get your suppliers and logistics locked in early. Ever had a supplier throw everything off track for your project? It's one of the biggest causes of stress in our industry, but it can be 100% avoidable with these steps. One late delivery can create a domino effect. Delayed fabrication, rushed installs, and a pop-up that is just not ready on time. And the worst part, it's usually because the supplier is locked in way too late in the piece. You don't want them scrambling from the start. So here are the things I like to do to make the most of the time I've got between now and when the project's going to go live. The first one is pre-ordering critical materials. I try to secure essential supplies and materials to avoid any shortages. If a project's locked in or confirmed with their team, it means that we can start pre-planning and pre-preparing, even if there's a few details that are still outstanding that aren't going to affect our ordering schedule. Super big win here. The next thing to cover is to vet your suppliers for reliability. You want to find people that can deliver on time every time. And then the last thing I want to do is track all the logistics in real time. I always get my team to monitor shipments and deliveries to catch any potential delays before they become a problem. You might be thinking, but Terry, what if a supplier does let us down? Well, this is where you want to have some backup suppliers up your sleeve so that if you need to rely on them or you need a plan B, you've got somewhere to turn to really quickly. Just make sure you vetted them in advance. The biggest mistakes I see here are ordering materials too late, which leads to unavoidable stress and rushing the job. The next one's relying on unvetted suppliers. If they're unreliable, you're at a huge risk. As you know, the deadline can't move and they need to be able to deliver what they've promised. And then the last one's not tracking shipments and deliveries closely enough. A small delay can become a big problem if no one's paying attention. Locking in suppliers nice and early is the easiest way to avoid the last minute chaos. When materials and deliveries arrive on time, everything else falls into place really nicely. Number 5 is ensuring seamless on-site installation. The biggest test of a pop-up event is installation day. If something goes wrong here, it could derail the entire activation. Too often, brands and agencies just assume it'll work itself out. But when the setup isn't planned properly, you end up missing parts, experiencing unexpected issues, and everyone's in a last-minute scramble to try and fix this thing before it goes live. Whenever I'm working on these projects, I want to ensure that the installation is going to be smooth and as stress-free as possible. And here's how I like to go about it. The first thing we want to do is pre-build all of the elements off-site, meaning we want to get as much of the job done, completely built in our workshop before we arrive on site, so that when we get there, we're not trying to build anything from scratch, because this can be a recipe for disaster. Next, we conduct a full installation run through. We get all of the elements that are being fabricated, and we test build them together the same way that they're going to need to integrate with each other when we get on site. Look, sometimes this can add a few dollars to the job overall, but you know that when everything arrives on site, it's already gone together before and that you're not going to run into any unexpected issues. If you've made something in your workshop and it doesn't fit properly with something else and you only realize this when you get to site, it's going to take you 3 times as long to rectify this issue. And this is something we will avoid at all costs. And the last thing I will ensure is that we've got a specialist install team. I always want to prep my team so that everybody knows who's doing what and they can execute under a tight timeline. I give them a full brief of everything they need to know before they arrive on site, so that means when they get there, they can hit the ground running and smash this out as fast as possible. A seamless install can be the difference between a smooth event and a really stressful one. When everything's tested and ready, setup's quick and it's generally problem-free. Number 6 is an efficient bump in and bump out. A great activation doesn't just arrive on site. It's carefully orchestrated for efficiency from start to finish. Disorganized bump ins lead to heaps of wasted time, and chaotic bump outs cause a lot of unnecessary stress. This is supposed to be the easy part. This is why I treat bump ins and bump outs as precise operations, ensuring maximum efficiency and minimal disruption. And here are the 3 things I like to think about when I'm doing this. The first one is to organize transport and preload it. We want to make sure that every item is packed and wrapped properly to avoid damage when it's getting from A to B. And we also want to make sure that we're not loading this truck last minute just before we're trying to run out the door, because that's when things are going to get damaged. The next thing I always want to do is assign a bump in manager. This is the one person that oversees the entire process and ensures efficiency. If you've got too many people steering the ship, it's going to go round in circles. And then lastly, I always want to make sure I've got a tear down plan. The way you bump something out is just as important as the way you bump something in. So you need to make sure that you plan this correctly. The biggest mistakes here I see are not planning logistics in advance, and this leads to a disorganized bump in, which causes massive delays. The next one's rushing the bump out, which can lead to expensive damages. The last one is not assigning clear roles to the people in your team. Without a structured team, things can get chaotic really quickly. A well-planned bump in and bump out saves time, money, and stress. When everything runs smoothly, you can focus on what matters most, delivering an amazing activation. Number 7, post-event follow-up for future success. What happens after an activation is just as important as the activation itself, because if you're not learning and improving, you're falling behind. Many suppliers treat activations as one-off projects, but if you're not analyzing what worked and what didn't, you're missing massive opportunities for improvement. We always stop to take a moment to collect your feedback so that we can make sure that your next activation is even better. Firstly, we gather the feedback, what worked well and what can be improved. And then we work to understand whether the campaign as a whole was a success for the client. And then we provide a full debrief to our team with the key learnings so that we can continue to grow. Every activation should be a learning experience. The more insights you can collect, the better your future activations are going to be. So to quickly recap, if you want to avoid all that last minute stress and execute flawless pop-ups moving forward, here are some really good things to think about. Lock in clear timelines and get speedy approvals. Minimize revisions and approval delays. Work with a proactive team that can prevent issues. Secure suppliers and materials early. Ensure a seamless on-site installation. Plan an efficient bump in and bump out, and use post-event follow-ups to improve future activations. When all these steps come together, you can execute a pop-up without all the stress and anxiety that comes with last-minute problems. I hope this was helpful. I'll catch you in the next one.